You live in a world that does not fear ignorance. It fears clarity. The crowd celebrates the agreeable, not the insightful. The obedient worker is praised, the silent follower is rewarded, while the questioning mind is quietly exiled. You sense this contradiction every time truth stirs on your tongue, and you feel the air thicken with discomfort. Society does not punish mistakes as harshly as it punishes those who dare to see differently. Consider the paradox. The very thing that allows civilizations to progress, intelligence, originality, vision, is the same thing that often isolates the one who carries it. To think deeply is to invite suspicion. To speak truths others do not want to hear is to risk rejection. Why does the herd instinct not welcome the shepherd who sees further, but instead crushes him beneath the weight of conformity? You may have already felt it when you spoke an idea that unsettled the room. When you asked a question your teachers, your leaders, or your peers did not want to answer. When your clarity, instead of being valued, became a source of discomfort. Why is it this way? Why does the world turn its back on intelligence, yet embrace obedience as though it were a virtue? And more haunting still, why do so many intelligent people, sensing this punishment, choose silence over truth? The answer cannot be simple, for if it were, you would not feel this constant tension between your mind's depth and the shallow applause of conformity. You would not feel the paradox of being right, yet unwanted, of seeing clearly, yet being ignored, of holding the gift of vision, only to realize it is also a curse. Think of the child who asks too many questions, and watch how quickly the classroom grows restless. Think of the worker who points out inefficiency, only to be branded difficult. Think of the citizen who questions authority, and see how swiftly they are cast as dangerous. These are not accidents, they are patterns, and patterns reveal something deeper than coincidence. They reveal the hidden machinery of human nature and society itself. But what is this machinery? Is it fear of chaos that makes people cling to the safe embrace of obedience? Is it resentment, the envy of those who cannot bear the mirror intelligence holds before them? Or is it something older, deeper, an instinct buried in our psychology, one that rewards survival over truth, comfort over clarity, belonging over freedom? You stand at the edge of this question, as countless thinkers before you have: Nietzsche, Jung, Schopenhauer. All of them wrestled with the same riddle: why humanity punishes those who dare to think beyond the script. And so, the stage is set. Not for a neat answer, but for a descent into the depths. For what you are about to uncover is not just a flaw in society, but a flaw in the very way human beings survive. The question is not only why society punishes intelligence. The deeper question is this: what does it gain by doing so? And what does it fear losing if you ever decide to stop obeying? To understand why intelligence is punished, you must look beneath the surface of society and into the architecture of the human mind. For the truth is unsettling. We are not wired for truth. We are wired for survival. And survival, for most of history, has depended not on independent thought, but on belonging to the group. From the earliest tribes, the cost of disobedience was death. To be exiled from the collective was to be abandoned to the wilderness, stripped of fire, food, and shelter. Your mind carries that ancient memory. Even now, When no predator waits outside your door, your nervous system still trembles at the thought of rejection. Conformity feels safe. Obedience feels protective. Questioning feels like danger. Carl Jung once observed that the individual who wants to have an answer must risk the disapproval of society. He understood that the human psyche contains a deep contradiction: the desire to awaken and the fear of awakening alone. This contradiction explains why intelligence so often finds itself punished. For intelligence leads to vision, and vision makes you different. And difference, in the unconscious logic of the crowd, is a threat. Consider this. When you think deeply, you disrupt the invisible agreement upon which society rests. The agreement says, do not question too much. Do not see too clearly. Do not disturb the comfortable illusions we share. When you violate this agreement, you are not punished because you are wrong. You are punished because you reveal what others desperately want to avoid. Truth is not rejected because it lacks value, but because it makes the lie harder to bear. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this clearly. He argued that people cling to herd morality not because it is noble, but because it is easy. It spares them the anguish of thinking for themselves. Morality, he wrote, is the herd instinct in the individual. The obedient person is rewarded because they reinforce the herd's survival. The intelligent dissenter is punished because they expose its fragility. This hidden problem runs deeper still. Modern psychology shows that the human brain is riddled with biases designed to protect stability, not truth. Confirmation bias makes us filter out inconvenient information. Authority bias makes us trust those in power, even when they deceive us. The need for social belonging makes us betray our own perception just to stay accepted. Intelligence threatens these defenses. Obedience reinforces them. And so, society unconsciously prefers the obedient to the intelligent. Arthur Schopenhauer described this with brutal clarity. Every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. To be intelligent is to step beyond that field, to see beyond the narrow circle of comfort. But when you reveal that circle for what it is, a prison, the prisoners do not thank you. They attack you. They cling to their chains because the chains feel familiar, and freedom feels unbearable. This is why intelligence so often feels like exile. Not because you are wrong, but because you are no longer speaking the language of the crowd. You are pointing to something they cannot or will not see. And in their eyes, that makes you dangerous. Society rewards obedience because it maintains the illusion of order. It punishes intelligence because intelligence threatens to unmask the illusion itself. But there is another layer, more sinister. Institutions, governments, corporations, schools are built upon this psychological machinery. They know, consciously or unconsciously, that obedience sustains their power. An obedient student keeps the classroom quiet. An obedient worker keeps the machine efficient. An obedient citizen keeps the hierarchy stable. Intelligence disrupts. Intelligence resists. Intelligence asks, why? And why is the most dangerous question in the world. Thus, the hidden problem is not just within the human psyche. It is embedded in the very structures of society. Intelligence demands growth, and growth destabilizes. Obedience demands repetition, and repetition preserves. Which do you think power prefers? And so, you begin to see the root of the paradox. Intelligence is punished not because it is a flaw, but because it is a mirror that reflects the cowardice of the crowd, the fragility of authority, the illusions upon which society rests. To reward intelligence would be to invite disorder. To reward obedience is to guarantee control. And society, like the individuals within it, chooses control over truth. Every time. This is the hidden machinery. This is why the child's question is silenced, why the worker's insight is dismissed, why the philosopher is ridiculed. Not because their words lack power, but because their power is too great. Because to hear them would mean dismantling the illusions that keep the crowd together. And yet, if intelligence is punished and obedience rewarded, what happens to the soul of those who obey? What becomes of a society that silences its visionaries, only to celebrate its conformists? The answer lies in the shadows of consequence, the quiet, invisible cost of obedience that eats away at both the individual and the collective. When intelligence is punished and obedience is rewarded, the results seep into every corner of life. The damage is not always loud. It rarely arrives in the form of chains or prisons. Instead, it takes shape in something quieter, subtler, an erosion of the soul. Think first of the individual. A child learns early that too many questions earn disapproval. So they ask less, think less, shrink themselves to fit the comfort of others. Their brilliance does not vanish. It turns inward, becoming restlessness, anxiety, or despair. An adult learns that challenging authority makes them expendable, while obedience makes them employable. So they play along, trading authenticity for stability, truth for survival. Day by day, thought by thought, they become ghosts of what they might have been. The unseen consequence of punishing intelligence is self-betrayal. And self-betrayal spreads like a shadow across an entire lifetime. You begin to live two lives. The one you show the world, obedient and agreeable, and the one that remains locked inside, filled with thoughts too sharp, questions too dangerous, truths too heavy. In time, the second life withers, starved of air. What remains is obedience, polished and hollow. Now think of society as a whole. When a culture rewards obedience, it multiplies mediocrity. Institutions become safe, but stagnant. Schools produce conformity, not creativity. Workplaces produce efficiency, not innovation. Governments produce compliance, not justice. The very structures that should be propelled forward by intelligence, instead, calcify under the weight of obedience. Progress slows, illusions deepen, and the collective forgets how to think. The most dangerous consequence is not simply stagnation. It is manipulation. A population trained to obey is easily steered. Authority does not need to convince them. It only needs to reward their compliance and punish their dissent. People stop asking whether what they are told is true, and begin asking only whether it is safe to obey. In such a climate, lies spread faster than truths, for lies are designed to soothe, while truths are designed to disturb. Psychologists call this learned helplessness, the condition in which individuals, repeatedly punished for questioning, stop trying altogether. The obedient citizen internalizes the belief that resistance is futile. The obedient worker believes innovation is dangerous. The obedient child believes silence is safety. And a culture of silence is the perfect soil for tyranny. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "When you choose not to choose, you are still choosing." Obedience feels passive, but it is never neutral. Every act of conformity is a choice to surrender one's agency. Every silence is a quiet agreement with the very systems that exploit it. The consequence is a society that slowly forgets its own power, mistaking obedience for virtue and mistaking submission for peace. And here is the cruelest paradox. Even those who benefit from obedience are not free. The authority who thrives on conformity becomes trapped in it as well. They must silence dissent endlessly, for their power depends on the illusion of stability. They cannot afford too much truth, lest their foundation crack. And so, they too live in fear. Fear of collapse, fear of exposure, fear of the intelligent voice that dares to rise. The unseen consequence is a cycle: intelligence suppressed, obedience rewarded, truth distorted, power entrenched. The cycle repeats until an entire culture begins to resemble a dream, smooth on the surface, rotting underneath. And yet, most do not see it, because they have been taught not to. Their minds have been trained to look away, to cling to comfort, to obey. But beneath the surface, the cost builds. The cost is innovation that never arrives, solutions that are never discovered, truths that remain buried. The cost is generations of people who live small, muted lives, afraid of the very thoughts that could have freed them. The cost is the quiet despair you sometimes feel, but cannot name, the sense that something is missing, that something inside you has been stolen. This is why the punishment of intelligence matters. It is not only the loss of individual voices, it is the loss of collective potential. It is the silencing of discoveries, the burying of visions, the dimming of possibilities that might have changed the course of humanity. Every time intelligence is punished, humanity itself shrinks. Every time obedience is rewarded, humanity itself forgets. And perhaps the most haunting consequence of all is this: after a while, people no longer realize they are obeying. The conditioning runs so deep, the conformity so automatic, that obedience feels natural, even chosen. And intelligence, instead of being seen as a gift, is dismissed as arrogance, rebellion, or madness. The system has achieved its perfect disguise. The prison becomes invisible, and the prisoners believe they are free. Yet within this silence, a faint tremor remains. The buried questions, the muted truths, the abandoned visions, they do not die. They wait. They linger. They whisper in the quiet hours of the night, reminding you that something inside you resists, something refuses to be silenced forever. And it is here, in that whisper, that rebellion begins. Rebellion does not always look like fire in the streets. Sometimes it begins as a quiet refusal within the mind, a refusal to surrender your perception, your questions, clarity. To break free from the machinery of obedience is not simply to defy society, it is to reclaim yourself. The first step is the most terrifying: to trust your own vision, even when it isolates you. Carl Jung believed that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Yet to become yourself, you must step beyond the safety of the herd. You must face the possibility that others will call you difficult, arrogant, even dangerous. But consider the alternative: to live your entire life as a shadow of someone else's design. Is that safety, or is it slow death? Breaking free begins with awareness. You must learn to see the invisible architecture of obedience around you, the subtle cues that train you to comply, the rewards that seduce you into silence, the punishments that frighten you into conformity. Once you see them, they lose their power. For what is hidden controls you most. What is seen can be resisted. The rebellion deepens when you dare to question, relentlessly, courageously. Ask not only what is expected of you, but why. Ask who benefits from your obedience and who suffers from your silence. Ask whether the truths you were taught are truths at all, or merely illusions designed to keep you docile. Questions are not harmless. They are dynamite. One honest question can unravel centuries of conditioning. History is filled with those who broke free not by brute force, but by unyielding thought. Socrates questioned until Athens silenced him with poison. Galileo dared to look through a telescope and declare that the earth moved, even as the church tried to crush him. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, and in that simple act of disobedience shattered the illusion of a segregated order. Each act of rebellion began with a refusal to accept the script, with the courage to say, "No, I will not obey what I know is false." But rebellion is not simply opposition. It is creation. To rebel is to build a life rooted in your own vision rather than in borrowed illusions. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, the one who creates his own values, was not a call to arrogance, but to responsibility. It was a demand that we stop outsourcing meaning to systems that exploit us and begin forging meaning ourselves. To rebel is not only to see the prison walls, but to step outside them and plant something new. This does not mean you must abandon the world. True rebellion is not escape, but transformation. It is to remain among the crowd while refusing to become its echo. It is to speak when silence is demanded, to act when passivity is rewarded, to live in alignment with truth even when it costs you acceptance. Rebellion is not only against society, it is for yourself, for your wholeness, for your soul. There will be resistance. The machinery of obedience is not dismantled easily. Friends may drift away. Authority may strike back. You may face loneliness. But consider this. Every voice that changed the world once echoed in emptiness before it resonated in history. What feels like exile in the present often becomes legacy in the future. And rebellion does not require perfection. You do not need to overthrow every system. You need only to begin where you are. Refuse to betray your intelligence in small ways. Speak the thought you fear will be judged. Pursue the idea that others dismiss as impractical. Make choices not because they are safe, but because they are true. Each act of authenticity is a fracture in the architecture of obedience. And when enough fractures appear, the entire structure begins to shake. To break free is also to build allies. Isolation is heavy, but connection with other seekers can transform loneliness into strength. Seek out the minds that question, the souls that resist, the voices that refuse silence. For while intelligence may be punished by the crowd, it is recognized by the few. And the few, when united, can alter the course of the many. Perhaps the most radical rebellion of all is to live fully awake in a world that thrives on sleep, to refuse illusions, even comforting ones, to stand in the nakedness of reality, even when it is unbearable. For obedience gives you certainty, but at the cost of freedom. Rebellion gives you uncertainty, but with it, the possibility of truth. Which would you rather die with, comforting illusions or the dignity of having seen? The rebellion is not easy. It is not painless, but it is necessary. For without it, you are not truly alive. You are merely performing a script written by someone else. To break free is to write your own. And in doing so, you not only liberate yourself, you light the way for others, still trapped in shadows. At the heart of this descent lies a truth most do not want to face. The world does not punish intelligence because it is dangerous to reality. It punishes intelligence because it is dangerous to illusion. And illusion is the fabric upon which most lives are sewn. The obedience you see everywhere, the silence, the compliance, the conformity, is not only demanded by authority, it is chosen by the people themselves. For to awaken fully, to think freely, to see clearly, is to carry a weight that most souls do not wish to bear. Intelligence does not only liberate, it also isolates. It strips away the illusions that make life bearable for the many. And so, people cling to their chains, not because they are forced, but because they are warm. Here lies the final realization. The punishment of intelligence is not the true prison. The true prison is the seduction of obedience. You can live your entire life shackled, never noticing the chains, because they are decorated with rewards, comfort, acceptance, safety, certainty. But every reward is also a leash. Every comfort is also a compromise. And the longer you accept them, the more you forget what freedom even feels like. The intelligence within you whispers that something is wrong, that the world is not as it seems, that beneath the applause for obedience lies decay, and beneath the silence of conformity lies despair. But the whisper is faint, and the roar of the crowd is deafening. To hear it, you must choose stillness. To follow it, you must choose exile. And to live by it, you must accept that freedom is not given. It is seized. The ultimate truth, then, is both liberating and terrifying. Society will not free you. Only you can. And your liberation begins the moment you stop seeking permission to be awake. Nietzsche warned that those who gaze too long into the abyss risk becoming it. But he also knew that only by facing the abyss do you realize its secret. The abyss does not consume you. It reveals you. It strips away the false, the borrowed, the obedient, until only what is truly yours remains. To live with intelligence in a world that punishes it is to walk through the abyss and come out the other side, carrying not answers, but authenticity. This is not a call to arrogance. Intelligence is not superiority. It is responsibility. It is the courage to see what others will not, and the strength to carry that vision without resentment. It is the task of being awake in a world that dreams of obedience. And though it costs you ease, it grants you something greater: dignity. The dignity of living as yourself, not as the echo of another's command. And once you accept this, something shifts. The punishment loses its sting. When society calls you difficult, you understand it means you are awake. When it calls you arrogant, you understand it means you refuse to bow. When it calls you dangerous, you understand it means you are free. The words meant to shame you become confirmation that you have stepped beyond the invisible walls. The final realization is this: obedience offers survival, but intelligence offers life. To obey is to exist safely, perhaps even comfortably, but always half asleep. To think, to question, to rebel, that is, to step into the raw, unfiltered essence of reality. It is to live without illusions, without guarantees, without certainty, but with a depth that obedience can never touch. Yes, society will punish you. It will call you names, isolate you, resist you. But the greatest tragedy is not that others punish intelligence. It is that so many intelligent souls punish themselves, silencing their own truth to fit into a world that fears it. Do not let that be you. For the moment, you choose to live aligned with intelligence. The game changes. You stop being controlled by approval, and you begin to walk with a strange, quiet power. You see that freedom was never in their hands. It was always in yours. And so you face the final choice, the one this entire journey has been leading you toward. Will you continue to obey, to trade your vision for safety, your truth for applause, your authenticity for belonging? Or will you dare to claim the dangerous gift of intelligence and carry it like a torch through a world that punishes light? Understand this: the obedient life ends in silence, forgotten in the crowd. The intelligent life ends in struggle, yes, but also in legacy. For the world only remembers those who refused to bow, those who dared to see, those who lived awake. The curtain falls here, with one final paradox. Society will always punish intelligence, and yet the more it punishes you, the more certain you can be that you are living as you were meant to live. For to obey may keep you safe, but only intelligence can make you free. So the question remains, the same question that began this journey, but now burning with urgency. Will you obey, or will you see?